The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanjurjo. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Jack.
And Father Joseph Sund. Hi, Father.
Hello, how we doing?
Doing great, and I know this is your first time on the show. You joined SQPN recently, so would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and give a little background?
Yeah, my name's Father Joseph Sund. I've been a priest ordained 5 years now. I'm of the Archdiocese of Omaha, stationed out of Atkinson, Nebraska, so I'll challenge you to find that on a map. I cover 7 rural churches. There's a team of 3 of us that cover 7 churches throughout 2 counties. So we keep ourselves plenty busy. But before I entered seminary, my background was that I was computer science major, lifelong computer nerd. My dad was a programmer, so always grew up around that. And so in addition to being the associate pastor at 7 churches, sometimes I also find myself the IT director of 7 churches. So nice. I'm sure we'll learn a little more about me as shows go on, but so I think that can suffice for now.
Awesome. Well,
I also heard that you are a Linux nerd like me. So
I am. Linux all the way. I will sadly admit that my machine is a dual boot because sometimes you have to accept evil.
Never.
And sadly right now, on my side, I am recording on a Windows laptop right now.
It looks like
it can't be avoided.
Yeah, we got Team Linux here tonight.
Bill Gates kind of trapped us.
It's okay. I'm usually on Linux, but I do use a Mac to record because it just works better for me.
Okay, so going on the Linux side, what are all of our distros of choice?
Usually Ubuntu or Ubuntu.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Thomas?
I was an Arch user for a long time, and then my family actually roped me back into Linux Mint because they all got on it, and I was like, wow, that's so much easier than having to rebuild every single thing that I have every time I open my computer.
Yeah, definitely.
I've enjoyed Arch. Currently, my primary computer, I switched over when Debian 11 came out. I had to give it a try. So
nice. That is awesome. Yeah, it's good to have you here. All right, we're going to start off with some listener feedback. Mike Anthor via email says, it brought a big smile to my face when Thomas recommended one-page rules as his pick of the week in episode 130. I've been playing with that system for a couple of years now, and it has brought the community back to gaming. No more spending time digging through rulebooks. No more huge investments every few years with time to learn new rulebooks and faction guides, and no judgment when your miniatures are 20 years old and not the most recent. Highly priced version.
Or even paper.
Yeah, exactly. The highly priced version on the shelves. Just your friends getting together, having some fun, laughing when someone rolls all the ones that's bad, or cheers when someone rolls all 6s. I did have a question. I'm looking for a good Catholic Bible app. I had one that I liked for many, many years that I could easily flip through between translations and bookmark and highlight multiple passages. It was just called Catholic Bible, but it has disappeared off my phone in the App Store. It happens, I guess, as developers move on to other projects and the operating systems render old programs obsolete. I'm sure the panel has some thoughts on what they like to use. There are several out there. Any recommendations? This is something that I'm going to have to defer to the rest of the panel on. I don't know, do any of you, do you have good recommendations? We have a list here, but do you have any thoughts on that, Father?
My app of choice, this one falls on the expensive end. I've been investing in this app ever since my seminary years, so I don't even want to go back and look through my finances to see how much I've spent on this app, but it's the Veribroom app that runs both PC. There's a mobile version of it, so if he's just looking for a Bible app, that might be a little overkill. But that's my app of choice. Another one that I have found enjoyable to use is, I think it's called the Truth and Life audio Bible. And it's a dramatized audio Bible. But in that app, I think you can also purchase the Ignatius Study Bible.
Oh, nice.
In that app. So that's focusing more towards the New Testament there. I think he has Old Testament in that, and I think you can all do the highlighting and notes in that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, looking at the prices here, it looks like Verbum is a little less than $100 a year. And the Truth and Life Bible, it's $20 for the audio and $20 for the study Bible. What about you, Thomas? Did you have any recommendations?
Well, I don't have for a Bible app necessarily, but Laudate is a really great free app that has the daily readings. It has the Liturgy of the Hours. It has a bunch of different prayers that are available to you. It's very bare bones kind of presentation, so it's not a lot. There's not a lot of busyness going on there. It's well updated. It has a set of Latin prayers, which I like, which is kind of a unique feature, I think, to it. And I've been using it for a while. It's made a consistent shift through all the phones when I'm looking at all my apps and figuring out which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to get rid of. That one's almost always there. So I definitely recommend it. I don't know if it meets the need of a Bible study app. So because it does daily readings, but I don't think it has a full-fledged Bible that you can search against and go through and read outside of just the daily readings.
Right. Yeah, I know that when you open up the daily readings, that it usually will take you out to the USCCB page. Yeah, that's a good one, and that one's free, and it's available on iOS and Android. Another recommendation that I would say is if you have a Kindle or an ebook reader, you can get many versions of the Bible, a lot of them for free on there. And those have note-taking abilities where you can highlight passages, you can take notes, and you can get like a list of all your notes generated and dump those out. Like if I'm doing a research project with a book, I really like using ebooks because it just allows you to organize your notes really easily.
One other comment I'd have on that is, it's a Protestant app, so we shouldn't bow our head at that right away. But Youversion is an app, and I'm certain you can get the RSV on that.
Okay, cool.
You'll just have to make sure that you find all your Catholic books involved in that. So it's going to have the Protestant slant, so you might not find the Catholic books of the Bible there.
Okay, nice. Yeah, but it looks like it's available for all mobile platforms too, and looks like it's a well-designed app. Nice, yeah. So today we are going to be talking about game systems. There's a bunch of different options out there. I feel like the console wars are kind of dead at this point because everyone's kind of settled on what they want, but there's still a lot of different options.
Yeah, I don't think it's not a thing where you're unless you're brand new to consoles, you're not picking at this point. But if you are and you're trying to figure out, where you want to fit into everything, then definitely I think this is a good overview time for us to do.
Yeah, definitely. So Thomas, what is your background in that, and what is your preferred gaming platform?
All right. So I'm a PC gamer all the way, 100%. I have had, I think the latest PlayStation version I had was a PS2. And I had an Xbox One. No, I had an Xbox 360. That was the latest Xbox that I had. And the Xbox 360 was given to me. The PS2 I bought used. I didn't buy either of them new. And it was mostly just to catch up on Final Fantasy games and grab like a couple of extra things that I wanted to play on Xbox. But I'm a Nintendo family. That's if we're talking game consoles, that's what we play because you can play as a group. And that's really what it comes down to for us is the ability to sit in the living room together, everybody grab a controller and just do something goofy and fun and cartoony that everybody can get involved in.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Father?
I'm more of a retro gamer. So my favorite console still to play, and I still have the games that I purchased back in when I was a kid for this system is the Sega Genesis.
Nice.
And you can't beat it. Now, part of it is the nostalgia. if I'm going to play a college football game that Nebraska was winning national championships, I have to play Sega Genesis. So, but also I do have the Xbox 360 in my living room. That's still my mobile platform of my gaming platform of choice. And I have my good old reliable Nintendo 2DS, so I can get my occasional Pokemon playing on during COVID.
There you go.
So.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Father. I tend to lean more towards retro games. Growing up, the only thing I had was a Super Nintendo that was a hand-me-down, and that thing was awesome. And so I've always been a fan of the older style of games. What I primarily do right now, actually, is play old games on emulators, mostly things for like Windows 3.1 or Windows DOS, and then a lot of like Commodore 64 games, things like that. I just like that era, especially the artwork and like the artwork, the music, and just the ingenuity that it took to build those games. Just like you don't think about it when you're playing them, but just like the different crazy things they would do to get like a few more colors on the screen, like with dithering and all this crazy like stuff that you would do, that I appreciate new games for how beautiful they can look, but I still feel like there's not that same limitation there. So I just find that whole aspect a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nothing beats playing Frogger on a Tandy, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Going way back. Yeah.
King's Quest 4.
Well, that's it's stuff that people don't know too. I think that's one of those things. The more you become informed about those games, the more interesting they are. So, like the fact that Mario's jump sound was actually a part of the music that the game played, and like that's the way they to compress everything into the space required. They had to figure out how to do creative, clever little things,
right?
Like that, where the jump sound is actually part of the music.
Yeah, definitely. I'll actually, in the show notes, I'll link this great video series by the YouTuber, the 8-Bit Guy, where he goes over the history of retro games and all the different crazy things that developers would come up with to eke a little more power out of those 8-bit and 16-bit systems. But the current generation of games, game systems is the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite. That's what Nintendo has currently, and they're very similar systems. The Nintendo Switch, I think it's like $300, and it includes this dock where you can plug it in. It's almost like it's like a large handheld, but you can plug it into this dock, and that way you can connect it to the TV. And then the Switch Lite is just the handheld module. And there's a lot of something I really like about Nintendo's model now is that they have a subscription service where you can get a bunch of the retro games like for their old systems on there. And I saw that recently they're working on bringing a lot of the old Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color games to the Switch.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's been my worry about switching over to Switch, pun not intended there, from my 2DS is I have a library of my old games built up, and for quite some time now, they haven't been able to promise to bring those over.
Yeah, they're working on getting a lot of that stuff in, but even so, it's still you're paying for a subscription service, and very similar to like with Amazon or Netflix. Sometimes those things may be on and then maybe they're gone because they just didn't have the viewership, and I don't know why they can't just have infinite space on the internet, but oh well. And you just end up there was a game that I was interested in playing, and before I could actually sign up for the subscription service, it's not there anymore, so I'm kind of bummed about that.
Yeah.
But I will say for the Switch, the difference between the Switch and the Switch Lite is the ability to plug it into your TV is really cool. And one of the things that I love, I play Animal Crossing, and I do like 15-20 minutes of Animal Crossing every morning when I get up while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew. And it turns the TV on for me. So all I have to do is grab my controller, sit down, press the button, and as soon as the Switch comes on, it sends a signal to the TV to come on, and the TV pops up right on the Switch, ready to go. It's great. It's the laziest thing, and it's so fantastic when you've just woken up and you're sitting down to go and water your flowers. Nice.
Yeah, I know a lot of my friends who have the Switch. Like that's their go-to game. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a good relaxing. My wife, who does not like video gaming, has started playing and is she's a daily player where she'll get on there and she does goes combs the beach, and then goes and visits an island to rob it of resources.
Nice. Yeah, it really seems like the delineation between the Nintendo and then the PlayStation and the Xbox is the kinds of games you're gonna get on there. Like Xbox and PlayStation tends to be the much more hardcore, like graphics intensive and those kind of games.
It's, as the gaming community will call it, it's the casual gamer versus the serious gamer, right?
Yeah.
Where the casual gamer plays the Nintendo and the serious gamer plays the PlayStation or the Xbox. And while I don't like that, because I think that gaming is a casual thing.
Yeah.
I understand where people are coming from, because the titles that you're going to get for the Switch are not in that more dark, artsy, or really high performance string, but they're a lot of fun. And I think that Breath of the Wild kind of blew the concept of Nintendo as a silly game system out of the water, and a lot of people ended up buying Nintendos because Breath of the Wild was such a fantastic game, and it was the first really truly open world game that felt like you could live in it and really just go around and do stuff. And that's saying a lot, because I'm a huge Skyrim fan, and that was still one of those games that had a very delineated story, and all the other stuff just seemed extra. Whereas with Breath of the Wild, it felt like you were just living in the world that you were in, and you had to travel around and do all the stuff that you could to explore the world and expand what you knew about it.
Nice. Yeah. I think they actually have Skyrim ported to the Switch now. I feel like it gets ported to everything, and they're never going to come out with Elder Scrolls 6 is never going to come out, just the new port of Skyrim.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so over on the in the more quote unquote hardcore gaming world, there's the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and the Xbox also has the Series S, which is kind of their lower end version. And that's something that I feel like for a lot of people it's really easy to, when you look at the Nintendo systems, like there's the Switch and then there's the Switch Lite. But then once you start looking at the like Xbox or the PlayStation systems, it becomes a lot more confusing. Like if you're just trying to get into that world with what you're gonna get. And then of course, like with the PlayStation and the Xbox, they're both. I'm not sure if the Xbox is 4K. I think the Series X is. I know the Series S, I believe, is not. But the PlayStation that does 4K, they both have really powerful processors, graphics cards, and they both do the onboard storage. But the Series X, I know it still uses they're using the Blu-ray discs. I find it a little bit funny that Microsoft, who pushed HD DVD for a long time, they're over in the Blu-ray world now.
Gotta go with what works, right?
Yeah.
If it's what's out there, that's kind of what you have to do.
Didn't streaming end up winning that battle overall?
I think so, yeah.
It's gonna. I know that you can still buy physical copies, but it seems like pretty much everything they're pushing is the streaming now. Yeah, downloading it onto the hard drive.
Well, I'll be honest and admit that the last 3 games I've bought for the Switch, I've done that because early on we got Mario Maker in physical copy. Yeah. And so we had the little chip that goes into the Switch, and it got lost. And that's $50 worth of a game that's just, gone.
Do you not get it linked to your account? Like you
don't get like a digital copy of it with the physical copy. So I'm just buying them digitally because they all fit. You just get a big enough SD card to shove in there, and they'll all fit on there, no problem. But yeah, so if it comes down to that, if you're debating whether or not you're going to get because I know that there's a PlayStation version that's cheaper without the optical drive.
Yeah.
So if you're not using it to play movies or for any of the other functions, and you're just planning on buying new games that go on there, not playing old PlayStation games or something like that, then get it without the optical drive, because you really don't need it. You just download the digital copies and you're good to go.
Right. And that's something to also to be thinking about. Like, just because it has an optical drive does not mean it's going to be able to play your older games. Like, I know there was a big a lot of people were annoyed when the PlayStation 5 came out because I don't think you can play like PS1 or PS2 games on that one. Maybe not even PS3. Yeah, it's only PS4.
Yeah.
So if you have a big library of games, chances are a decent amount of them are going to be available digitally, and usually they're a remastered version. But there's no guarantee that your physical copies are even going to work.
Right.
So I can't play my Grand Theft Auto 1, the last version last version that wasn't so violent that you had to bring it to confession, right?
Yeah.
You can't play the Grand Theft Auto 1 anymore on it. So
that was back when it was still top down, right?
I think so, yeah.
Nice, yeah.
yeah, you can't do much violent with 16-bit. So.
Yeah. And kind of what the new frontier of gaming is the virtual reality. So now PS4, they have a headset that kind of ties into their whole ecosystem. You can play different games with that. But the big one is the Oculus company, which is now owned by Facebook, actually. Do y'all have any experience with virtual reality games?
I don't have any. I've been wanting to, but I don't know. It's hard to invest in a whole new system.
Yeah.
like that's kind of my hold up, because, you know, part of the reason that I don't get the really expensive systems is because I have 10 kids, and, you know, I actually only have eight kids, but they break everything.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to invest in a really beefy system that's going to sit there by the TV and get knocked over and broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Father?
My niece and my brother-in-law have the Oculus, and so I think that was one of my first moments that I felt like an old person using technology. She, like, my little niece is showing me how to put the goggles on and how to hold these controllers in my hand, and by the time I get my bearings, I feel dizzy. It was a whole new learning curve for me, and it felt really weird being the one that was just overwhelmed by technology. So hopefully that doesn't mean I'm entering into a geriatric phase or something. So
That's funny, because one of our oldest contributors on the show is she loves the Oculus. She is like all about it. So she talks about all the different stuff that she's playing on it and that she's really into it. So it's I think it's funny the different directions that you can come at the VR stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say we need a.
I heard that because she's talking about using it in retirement homes and stuff, and the positive effects that have. And I was kind of laughing because I'm like, I hope they're sitting down when using it, because those things are definitely a fall risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Pat Scott is a huge fan of Oculus Rift. So every time I've played with one, I've gone home with the intention of sitting down and ordering one. And then I look at the price tag and I'm like, this is awesome. I love it. But it's not like buying a television where I can justify it because I can use it for other things. So that's been my big sticking point, is like, this is cool, but it's still a one-use thing for me, at least. But I know that they're even beyond just gaming. Like, I know that it's used in engineering scenarios. It's really good, apparently, in like for therapy settings, because you can do like work with that. But it's a fantastic product, and a lot of the games are really cool. And it's one of those technologies where before you try it, you kind of think about it like, I'm sure it's cool, but it's not as cool as everyone says. And then you try it and you're like, this is as cool as everyone says.
It's really that cool.
Yeah.
Okay. There's part of me, and you can call me the conspiracy theorist on this, but having Facebook put cameras directly into my retina makes me a little weary. I don't know.
I think Agent Smith is about to show up at your house.
But see, the one thing that would interest me about the Oculus is they do have a 3D modeling component, and I've heard good things about it. Yeah, and I'm a huge 3D design nerd. I love 3D printing, and so if I could get a sample of how that works and then try and make something and print it on a 3D printer, that would probably push me over the edge into getting one, because then it would be, it would fit that multi-use thing, right? Where it's like, I'm getting it for, 3D modeling. I'll game on it too, but it's it's for my 3D modeling.
We have our Dremel in the grade school for the 3D printer, and nice. And I get a little too much enjoyment out of teaching the kids how to use that sometimes. So.
Oh yeah, no, those things are fun too. And so that's all like the standalone systems that you can get, and that's far and away the easiest way to get into gaming. But then you have PC gaming, which is a whole nother can of worms.
It is.
Let's open that can.
Yeah, let's do it. If you are interested in PC gaming, then I recommend that you learn how to build your own PC. Which sounds really intimidating, but it's really not. There are a lot of great sites out there like PC Part Picker, which is just a fantastic site to go to, and they have even recommended builds on there. And if you're going to go for a gaming PC, the biggest thing to do is just start with a good GPU. Figure out what your price point for the GPU is, and realize that you're going to about double that for the whole PC. Yeah. So just pick the GPU, because that's going to be about half the cost of your PC, and then build it around that. And that's how you build a gaming PC right there. Yeah.
Yeah. With the GPU thing, though, we have to throw the curveball in right now with what's going on with GPU prices, with both the chip shortage and the our good friends who are doing Bitcoin and all of that and mining are having a big impact on the GPU market.
It's hard to get one right now. I had a friend who was trying to get a 3080 for the longest time, and it took him like 4 months to track one down where he wasn't paying like 3 times what its market value actually was.
My build that I just did this summer, I could not get a good GPU, and I just grabbed, this thing's like, I'm wanting to say 8-9 years old GPU. It's like a NVIDIA GTX 470 or something. So it's old, but it gets the job done. I'm not doing too much gaming on a Linux machine right now. We can dive into that question later. So it gets the job done of the basic stuff. And so, Tom, do you go more towards Intel or AMD when you do your processors?
I tend to go AMD. That's I tend to find that they are the most reliable. I've built a few PCs with Intels and had the chip burn out on me. So I don't know.
I am a recent AMD convert. So. All right. This build I just made was my first AMD build. I'd always done my last build before that was about 3 years prior. I built my dad's computer, which was a 7th generation Intel. And after that, I really just haven't seen Intel innovating too much.
They've really fallen behind.
And so AMD's, and the fact that Intel's probably changed the socket that their processors go in 6 times since AMD's come out with the A4 socket for your CPUs. So
I went AMD a while back. I've probably done 10-15 builds with just AMD stuff all the way through, and it's been great. It's been really easy. Not too much to worry about, honestly. But that's my go-to. And then I do Linux, so I do game on Linux, which is a challenge in itself. So if you're a Linux user and you're trying to game, but I will say Steam won with the way that they have Proton set up inside of Steam, and basically all you do is just click on the game and tell it to run a compatibility mode, and it takes care of everything on the back end. And very rarely will you have to go out and search for something. In fact, when Cyberpunk came out, I played on my Linux machine, and everybody on Windows was having all these problems with it, and it just ran just like that. I just put it in Proton, and it just ran smooth, ran great. And then they did the patching, and the patching broke something on the Linux side of things.
So does that allow you to play Windows games, or does it have to be a game that's already built for Linux?
Nope, it's Windows games. It's just straight. Yeah, it basically, it kind of runs so it runs Wine, which is not an emulator.
Right.
It runs Wine, and it layers it with the way that the games work. And it's fantastic. I resisted using it for a long time because I didn't really understand what it was. But basically, it's just a play on Linux that's made specifically for Steam and Steam games.
Oh, nice.
Off the gaming category, but back to our question that we had earlier. I recently figured out how to run my Youversion software on Linux using Wine containers. And I was greatly amused that my Youversion on Linux runs better than it does on my Windows computer. So I'm running Windows software through a container on Linux, and it runs better than it does on Windows.
Nice. On
the same machine.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's not an uncommon experience, actually. A lot of people talk about the fact that they can get some things. I'll give an example. There is a game that I'm playing on Steam called Arc, and it has both a Linux version and a Windows version. And I actually run the Windows version through Proton because it runs better than the native Linux version does. There's some glitchy stuff that happens with the native Linux version that I don't care for, and so I just run it through the Proton, and I've got an experimental version that I've loaded on my computer because I'm a tinker. Nice. but it's totally doable now, and I think that's the thing that if anyone has ever been intimidated by the fact that I don't want to get a Linux machine because I can't game and there's nothing that's made for it, that's really just not the case anymore.
Yeah, there's been a lot of advancements made. So I guess the last thing I would say about that is the main advantage to PC gaming over console gaming is that you can swap out the different parts of the system as you go. So you can build your system, but then you can upgrade different pieces individually, and that's usually going to last you longer than a console. And of course, the flip side of that is games released for the consoles are optimized for the consoles. So it's less plug and play, but it's a lot more fun to build your own system.
Well, and then like you were saying, Jack, with the multi-use issue too, if you have a good gaming PC, you're good for 3D modeling, you're good for graphic design, you're good for video editing. If you wanted to do other stuff with your machine, you definitely can. And that's I think a big advantage to having a PC is that it's not just sitting there being used for games.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Did y'all have anything else on that topic?
The one thing we were talking about Steam, and Steam had their big announcement that made the Linux podcast universe just go crazy, and me as well, especially as someone who enjoys using Manjaro Arch Linux as well. They announced I think did they decide to call it the Steam Deck?
Oh yeah,
I think that's what they're sticking with.
Device.
Which I don't know if Elgato with their Stream Deck, if they have some problems with that one letter difference or not. But yeah, their promise they came out with at the beginning was that they were claiming that it was going to be able to play all Windows games or all the games in the Steam library.
Right.
By its release in December. It sounds like the recent news is they kind of rolled back on that, and they said that it's going to have the hardware capability to do it, but it not necessarily is going to play them all yet.
Even that's still impressive. I don't know, like a handheld device that has the hardware capability to play everything that's on Steam is fairly impressive.
I think they're decreasing the graphics. I think the screen on it's going to be like a 720. So you decrease it a little bit. You don't have to put as powerful, but man, I'm just looking at that as a, $399 for a portable PC with that amount of hardware in it. that might just be worth it for the hardware itself, not even being able to game on it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be cool to see where that kind of thing goes, because I think Nvidia, like probably like 5 or 6 years now, did something similar. It was a handheld gaming device, but I think that we hadn't really reached the point where the hardware had caught up with that kind of form factor for anything more than like a handheld type game. And then, of course, we didn't even talk about like Stadia or those streaming services. And the main reason is I have absolutely no experience with them. And the only people who I've spoken to who've tried them out have not been fans of them. So I would say that if you're looking to get into gaming, that's really probably not the direction you're going to want to go.
I will say on that point, and this is something that I think is I don't know if it helps someone make a decision about that or not, but I have my system set up right now so that I can load Steam up on my rig back here and then play in the living room. So I can play on my gigantic TV in the living room, and I can even plug a controller in on that TV. And I mean, my daughter right now is playing Hollow Knight, which is a pixel perfect platformer on that TV. So it's responsive enough that you can actually play a game like that.
Oh, wow.
In another room. Yeah. So, you know, the technology is getting there. I don't know that it's entirely there yet, but it's getting to that point where our internet speeds are fast enough that if all your computer is doing is displaying the graphics, and that's all they have to do is just send across the rendered display, then we're getting close to that being a really viable gaming system. So if you're willing to hold out for a little bit, I think within the next year or so, we're going to see that be a really honest way to game.
And I think a lot of the complaints have been the titles. Like that's what I ran into with Apple Arcade on my Mac when I bought that. It came with a free trial of that, and I didn't end up renewing it because there wasn't really anything to play.
Right.
I couldn't even find good there was a few Sonic clones, but those were even wanting.
Yeah, there wasn't really. I mean, a lot of it was not. It was a lot of like more casual type like adventure games or some mediocre platformers. A couple racing games that just weren't good, but nothing that really is worth paying a monthly subscription for, in my opinion. Yeah. All right. We're going to jump into some headlines now, but before we do that, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Sam E., Jordan M., Nancy M., Samuel A., and Maria T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right, we got a couple interesting headlines here. The first one, we kind of touched on it in our main topic, but it's the chip shortage that's been going on. It's been one of those issues that's been since the coronavirus pandemic and then just a few other economic things going on. The way those dominoes have been falling, there's a huge shortage of silicon chips right now, and it's affecting a lot of manufacturers of computer systems. It's delaying systems coming out, and it's also driving up the cost of the systems that are coming out. So one that I found very interesting, and actually know some of my coworkers have experience with this, is the automotive industry is being hugely affected by this, where they have these entire fleets of cars. They're ready to go, 2021 models ready to go, and they're just sitting on lots. They're actually being shipped out to dealers to just sit there because they don't have the microcontrollers for them. And they're running into this issue now where it talks about in this article, Glenn O'Donnell, who is the vice president of research director at Forrester, talking about how we're getting to this to the point where you have all these 2021 cars and they're not you can't sell them right now because they're not complete. You just rebrand them as 2022 models and release them. And we're running into this with computers too, where like we talked about with graphics cards, like it is impossible to get a graphics card right now.
I've been amazed that like the graphics card that I bought 10 years ago is selling more expensive. Like I could make a profit selling my graphics card from 10 years ago right now, which is just wild to me.
Right.
Even your workstation cards that can't do much of anything I had some sitting in my closet that, a couple years ago I would have been told to give me $5 and at least you're cleaning out room in my closet.
Yeah.
And some of those are selling for $50-$60 for dirt.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Something else that they've talked about was as the lag has gone on between the manufacturing and the release time, like they were thinking like, late 2021, early 2022, this stuff is going to start to be sorted out and kind of correct itself. But we're getting into that time and it's just getting worse right now. And so it's probably not going to be until 2023 or maybe even 2024 that things are kind of going to get back to normal. And so it's causing a lot of people to look at alternatives for where we source these materials, because a lot of them, and this is a problem with technology in general, is you're sourcing rare earth materials from places that usually are not the safest, or it's causing a big economic and environmental impact on the places where they're getting it from. And that's always the issue I run into when I'm looking at a new piece of technology. I'm like, what is the moral calculus between me buying this flashy new gadget and the fact that I don't really need it and the impact it's having?
Is my technology ethically sourced?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's hard to know that. It's really hard to like make any kind of informed decision about that because, and especially as we're learning more things about like, the manufacturing procedures in China or this, again, an example of like just the mining of rare earth materials is, and then to say that we're manufacturing some of these things here because a lot of the silicon chips are manufactured in the States. Right. So we're shipping the raw material here to manufacture the chip and then shipping it back out to the rest of the world. And it's like, this is the amount of wasted energy that goes on in these things is just tremendous.
The one thing I'm happy about this chip shortage, what it's done, as someone who is a very cheap geek is what I'd call myself.
Yeah.
Yes. Working in Catholic education makes me even cheaper with stuff. They tell you that the ordinary computer is supposed to have a 5-year cycle, and Catholic schools usually will try to pull 12 to 15 out of that 5 years. And just this idea of the right to repair, and ability to repair, and the fact that maybe these companies who are using these technologies that are so rare and so hard to come by, to stop building PCs and Macs that just get thrown away.
Yeah.
That there's valuable parts and to make them able to be repaired and upgraded and all of that. And if we could come back around to that,
definitely
would be a positive COVID thing to happen.
Right. I know we were talking about this offline before we started, Thomas, but like the new iPhone, it's not really different from the previous generation, which wasn't really different from the generation before that. Like at a certain point, like some of this technology that we feel the need to upgrade every single year, like the improvements are not really worth buying an entire new device. Like my phone from 5 years ago basically operates the same as a phone from nowadays. It doesn't have 4 cameras on the back, but it gets the job done.
And one of the complicated things there is it used to be that you could drive a car into the ground, right? You could just push a car until like, okay, it is not worth it to repair this issue that the car is having because it is too expensive for me to do that. I need to go buy a new car, right? But with technology, a lot of times it's just you don't know. You don't know where that line comes. And so, with my wife, she ended up having to get a new iPhone last year because the bloat from all of the updates that she was accumulating just it killed her phone. Like it had taken up every bit of space that her phone had, and everything was running slow because it had finally just gotten to the point where she was, that many generations behind what they were pushing out as updates.
It would be nice if you could just install Linux on her iPhone, though.
Hey, oh man. Oh, don't get me started on trying to make Linux phones a thing.
One day.
It's got to happen at some point. I want to build your own phone, man. That's what I really want.
People have tried it. There was that Modular Phone from several years ago, and that never took off. And there's a phone that I actually, if it was available in the United States, I would get it. It's called the Of course, now that I said it, I can't remember the name. It's like what is it called? It's a fair phone. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like an ethically it's built with all ethical, all recycled, all like non-conflict source materials, and it runs on Android, and it is designed to be easy to repair. Like you go on the website, you can buy the phone. It's like $400 US. Of course, you can't use it here, but you can buy like all the components for that phone on there. And the phone even comes with a screwdriver to open it up if you need to replace the like the headphone jack, because of course it still has a headphone jack, which is nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Or the camera, all the different parts, and it's designed to be user serviceable. And that's really what I wish. I wish that companies still thought that way. Of course, obviously for, money reasons, you don't want people to fix their own computers, but it makes it difficult to want to spend that much money on a system that you cannot fix if it breaks.
I'm kind of mad that you introduced this.
Oh yeah.
Can't have it.
You're grieving being American right now, huh?
So, yeah, right. Yeah, I think the chip shortage is going to be one of those things that's going to make people rethink the way that we're sourcing materials first off, but really that it's good because it's causing the whole manufacturing chain to start rethinking how it's just been lazy about creating a cycle of, well, I don't know, that's just the cheapest thing. Just get that thing because it works. Not thinking about, well, what happens to the supply chain? Where do I get alternatives? How is this really the best option, or is it just the bottom line cheapest option?
Right. It's going to be interesting to see when this stuff shakes out, how it ends up falling. All right, we had another interesting story here. This one is about AI rights. So there's a UK court has confirmed that AI has no rights under their laws, and they cannot own patents. And so there's this scientist. His name is Dr. Stephen Thaler, and he has this AI that he has built called Debus, and he's claiming that this AI should be credited for all the inventions that it has helped work on. And he's like filed this multiple times with the patent office, and they've shot it down multiple times. And basically their ruling is you developed the AI, and so that is where the patent would fall, not under the AI itself, even though a lot of the work ostensibly was done by the AI. His argument is I did not come up with this work on my own, and I would not have come up with this work without the AI. So therefore the AI is an equal partner in this patent. What do y'all think of that?
I think when the machines take over, Australia is going to be okay, and the EU is going to be in trouble because Australia just ruled the opposite, right? They just ruled that you could that an AI could own patents.
So my question is, if the AI has the right to hold the patents, at what point do we start taxing the AI? Right? So, and I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but then in all seriousness, right? If you're winning the patent as AI, and we're talking economics and entrepreneurship, right? You're saying the AI took the risk, right? And made the investment, and therefore that falls into this category of taxation on wealth made from that risk. And so, well, he says that, I'm not sure if this individual would rather, because I mean, the AI is not going to create his own money unless he's mining Bitcoin to pay taxes, I guess, maybe.
Well, or if he's making money off of whatever these inventions are that he's created, that would be the other thing that could be possible. I could see this. I could see if there was a trust that was created for this AI. And the idea of the trust was that it was to fund further research into developing and maintaining the AI, right? So effectively right now, the money goes back to the original developer, right? So the desire of the court is met because the original developer, it gets that money. But what happens if that developer dies, or if that developer stops developing?
Right.
But the AI was the one that came up with the inventions and is continually inventing new things. Now, what ends up happening to that AI? And it's a kind of odd place to be in, where he might be the only person that understands how the code was written well enough to be able to develop it. and needs funding to create a team that can continue on perpetually after him, and that this AI could continue to develop and continue to become a better inventor afterwards, and then those proceeds could fund back into its system to kind of maintain itself. I can see an argument there.
I can see that, but I don't see how that's different than just setting up like an LLC and then having the patent fall under like this company, like because like under US law, I don't know how it is with the EU, but corporations are considered people because they pay taxes, and you know that's a whole other question of whether or not they should be. But I don't see how this is like. I think almost he was doing it to make a statement, because he still claims to own the AI. It's not like he's saying this AI is its own person and it can do whatever it wants. So I don't really see how this is functionally different than just setting up an LLC or an incorporation and then having the patent be given over to that company for management. And the AI is a tool that the company owns.
Yeah.
Right.
If he's arguing it's a person, what happens if his AI goes off and marries Alexa and
yeah,
or hacks into a government facility, right?
Yeah.
My invention
right,
was a backdoor to this thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting questions, and I think that as AI develops more and you start getting things that are more than just machine learning, like we start approaching some sort of at least simulation of like consciousness and decision making, like I think that's when the really interesting questions are gonna come about.
We talked about there's been those stories of the cars and stuff, of crash avoidance and stuff. And then I think of AI using it with war. Really makes my stomach turn. Letting AI make the decision on making a drone attack or something like that, in which really you need a human person to be making these moral decisions of whether this is a just and right thing to do.
Right.
And a computer can't weigh moral decisions, no matter what we can try to say.
Right. Yeah, it's I know that the autonomous car thing has been a big question. And I feel like a lot of it is also growing pains. Like we will adapt to these new tools and we will adapt ways for them to be used. But it is an interesting thing. And I feel like there's a lot of questions that we don't really understand yet about this. All right. Yeah, we're going to do our picks of the week now. Thomas, would you like to go first?
All right, so dovetailing off the conversation about artificial intelligence and machine learning, I have recently gotten into designing and developing my own. I found this great resource. The author of this book, Harrison Kensley, has a fantastic YouTube channel. He loves Python. He writes a lot of code in Python. He's a really great teacher. So if you find CentDex on YouTube, he's got a lot of really great information about writing in Python generally. But right now what he's doing is he's developed this book called Neural Networks from Scratch. And the great thing about this book is that it's literally a textbook. It's huge. I have it right here. I'm showing it to the team, and it is enormous. But it is a textbook about what a neural network is, and writing one in bare Python. So without like going to TensorFlow and just using one that pre-exists, he talks you through the entire process of creating the nodes, editing the nodes so that they wait for each other and that they have a bias. And then he's got some ideas for what to do with it. And it becomes more apparent to you the more you learn about it, what kind of things you can do with a neural network and machine learning. And it's really good because if you know any Python at all, if you know any coding, it's very bare bones coding. So it's really not complicated. Like the most complicated thing that happens is you have to get into some slightly advanced math. And that's just because that's the way that machine learning works, is on transformations, and you have to know vectors and things like that. But even all of that stuff is eminently learnable. You just go to Khan Academy and find some videos about it and you're good. But he's doing a video series right now where he's talking through the basics of what machine learning is. And I conceptually knew what machine learning was, but I didn't really know what was going on under the hood. And doing this is helping me really figure out, okay, when we talk about a neural network, what is happening there? Like what is each different piece of code doing? And actually writing it in Python, which is a very understandable language, is helping understand that. So if you're interested at all in machine learning, if you know any Python at all, and even if you don't know Python really, you can look at his channel and figure out, because Python's so basic that it's not like a big like it's literally just a bunch of for loops with some math thrown in it. And so it's not complicated Python. It's just the concept is difficult, and that's what he's explaining by doing this.
That sounds awesome. You're gonna have to look at that.
It's really neat.
Cheers to the best programming language there is. So.
Yes.
What about you, Father?
My pick this week kind of goes off our gaming thing there. And being a retro gamer myself, and then kind of the, well, I'll get into this first. It's Archive.org has a console living room that you can go into. And when you go into it, it basically runs the emulators in the web browser. One of my favorite things about this is, being a priest, I can be ethically minded a little bit and worry about whether or not I'm breaking a commandment by downloading ROMs that I did not purchase. We won't dive into that too much. But the nice thing about Archive.org is that the courts have already ruled, right, that they have the right as a library to have that stuff on their server. And so they've created a way that you emulate inside their website, and you can play those games on their website. Occasionally I'll go up there and I'll play Oregon Trail just so I can die of dysentery.
Yes.
And there's just an incredible selection. I mean, you can go back to your Tandies, to your arcade gaming, every little thing you can think of. And the great thing is I've played on this website on a Raspberry Pi before.
Nice.
You don't have to have high computing power to be able to play these emulators on a web browser. And so, yeah, I just enjoy that. And so it's a good thing. It's not quite the same as holding the Atari controller in your hand, but close as you're going to get.
Yeah, I was going to say, this really, if you're interested in retro gaming, this takes a lot of the legwork out of having to find an emulator and install it and go through all that. Like, I can play a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the PlayStation 2 in my browser, so I'm happy.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
The one fall off that I found is sometimes controller compatibility with it, which this is going to be the case with emulators on your PC and Linux too. Sometimes your controller compatibility is not the best. So sometimes you're playing your games with keyboard keys and stuff.
Right. Yeah, that is awesome. My pick of the week is just a lighthearted one. I recently switched over from iPhone back to Android. And one of the things that I always have liked about Android that you can't do on iPhone is that you can get different launchers and themes for your device. So most of them come with a built-in launcher, which is just the look and feel of the device. And one thing that I love to do whenever I have an Android phone is skin it to look like the LCARS systems from the Next Generation Star Trek. And I found this really awesome one. It's by far the best one I've ever found. It's for a launcher called Total Launcher, and it's an interface that you can get for it called Trek Total Interface. And it gives you a complete LCARS skin for your system. And unlike other ones I've used in the past where they essentially just kind of give you like a static page that has like the LCARS layout, this lets you edit every single different block, like the big colorful like primary colored buttons that they have, and you can set each one to do exactly what you want. And you can set up the layout exactly how you want it. It's got all the sound effects and everything. It's awesome. So I can have my own pad right there.
Almost as good as being able to customize it if you were to have Linux on your phone.
Oh, exactly.
It's close.
Yeah. I can scan for a anomalies in the space-time continuum. So, yeah. But yeah, it's $4.99 on the Android store, and it's a lot of fun. Awesome. Yeah, that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or on the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. You can find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. You can help grow the secrets of tech by writing a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or one of the different podcast directories, and share the podcast with your friends to help us grow our community and reach more listeners. Until next time, Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
It was great being here.
And Father Joseph Sund, thank you as well.
Thank you. Blessings.
And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.